Good evening, everyone. This is another episode of the SLTD Going Over Big Time podcast. I am, of course, the Fantastic, joined again once again with by my friend Mike, Charlotte, and we're here tonight to do another episode, talk about wrestling. Specifically, the topics we want to cover today are Sting's imminent retirement and his final match is going to be like, and AEW World Champion MJF. Uh, I mean, eventually somebody will take the belt off of him. I think we've established that there's a number of challengers already, Mike. But I think ultimately we want to try to figure out what would be what would make the most sense in terms of who would ultimately take the title away from MJF at this point. So, how are you doing? And how are things?
Uh, I'm doing pretty well. Yeah, there's a lot a lot going on in AEW right now, and it's as far as I'm concerned, it's all positive. There's still, of course, there's still a little stuff that needs to be addressed here and there, as there is with any company. But yeah, I am really enjoying everything that's going on right now with MJF. MJF is he is the main focus of all the shows, it seems, right now. I mean, not this past week's Dynamite, but the week before, it felt like the entire show was about MJF.
I mean,
And
I would argue it's been the year of MJF at this point. I mean,
yeah,
he's been at the center of some of the most memorable feuds in All Elite Wrestling. But I think in 2023, it's just been really ratcheted up. Going back to when he first started feuding with Adam Cole, and then eventually becoming his tag team partner, and then doing this whole bromance thing throughout the summer, and now
yeah,
with Adam's untimely injury requiring surgery, Max has just been on a roller coaster. I'm still really baffled at how this guy I'm so used to seeing him as a heel is now like the top babyface in the company. He hasn't really changed that much in terms of his overall character, but it's a classic. Like, my recollection is like when The Rock turned babyface. The Rock didn't really change much of the way his mannerisms were. He just redirected his attacks,
yeah,
quote unquote, to like other people instead of the fans, right? So um
yeah. And he's been kind of like, and we've kind of talked about this in the past, but he's kind of been like mocking babyface tropes and like doing them well and acknowledging that he's mocking them. And he calls the fans scumbags, and or like he's a scumbag, but he's our scumbag, and calls us pores, and says that we're his pores. Um, and again, like he knows what he's doing. He's he's doing it to get a pop because he knows that it's a joke.
yeah.
It's but it's also like he's embracing it also, and kind of like uh you know just rolling with it. And I think we all thought from the beginning, when this thing with Adam Cole started, that he was just going to go back to being the MJF we're used to, or we're used to, and this would all just go away.
Yeah, we
But
were waiting for the big turn. Like, there was like a couple of moments where we thought that he was just gonna go back to being the way he was, and it didn't happen. And then it just things I think organically just took off,
mhm,
and fan reaction, and then the basically think, okay, you know what, you may have been a big time heel, but like they love you, so roll
yeah,
with it.
And in the process of, Adam Cole getting hurt, he's also been defending, well, I mean, only one time so far, but he's doing it again at Full Gear. He's been defending the ROH tag titles by himself. And I mean, I like we saw how that went, at previous shows, and now he's doing it again, this time against the Guns. And I I think it's crazy to think like MJF used to wrestle 5 times a year, if that. And now he's wrestling on every show, sometimes twice, and he's killing it. He's absolutely killing it. And I think if it was not for Will Ospreay, he would probably be in the talks for Wrestler of the Year. But
Yeah, that's a good argument. I mean, yeah, it's I think let's just recap for the fans who may have missed it somehow. Just this past Dynamite alone, there were at least like 3 to 4 storylines just spun off from MJF himself. All right,
yep.
you've got his uh pending championship match with Jay White at Full Gear, but as you mentioned before that, he accepted a challenge from the Guns for the ROH World Tag Team titles, which we're assuming he will be defending by himself. But Full Gear is almost still about 3 weeks away or so. Who knows? He might find a tag team partner as a sub in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, you've got Kenny Omega, basically coming out after all this shenanigans occurred, saying that I don't deserve a title match, but I have a right to defend my streak. As in, Kenny Omega currently has the longest
Well, and
AEW title reign at
and
346 days.
and MJF kind of goaded that on because
Yeah, he
last
did.
week, last week was the first time that they have ever been on screen together, and
Yeah,
they just acknowledged the fact that he is closing in on that title reign, and then MJF said at the time, obviously at the time he said 13 days, bitch, and Kenny took that to heart, obviously, because he's Kenny. And why wouldn't he want to remain the longest reigning champion of all time? So, yes, and then this past week, he comes out after all the shenanigans that's already taken place and challenges MJF to a title match on this Saturday's Collision at time of recording, because that's the only time that they can have the match for him to defend the record.
yeah. I mean, it was kind of teased, and I think some of us may have expected it because, just a week or so ago, it was like advertised that both MJF and Kenny Omega would be on the October 28th episode of Collision,
Yeah.
and based on what had happened before, it was kind of obvious what they were leading into. Not only Kenny Omega, not only Jay White, Samoa Joe has been making noise about getting another title shot. He had lost the title shot to MJF after MJF had promised to choke him out, which he did. And so Joe kind of went to the back burner for a while, then reemerged with some really excellent vignettes, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
He came up to MJF after when MJF was getting iced by the doctor and said, looks like you need some friends around here. And Joe said, I'll be a friend. And in a bit of out of character, not out of character, but perhaps completely in character for him, but not what I expected. MJF said, "Oh yeah, sure, absolutely."
Well, and this came after the challenge that was accepted by MJF to find 3 partners to team with him against
Bullet Club Gold. Yeah.
Bullet Club Gold. And Roddy and the Kingdom offered their services, and MJF said no because he hates them. And
the acclaimed
mostly
Max Caster is offering his
Yes.
services.
So the Acclaimed also offered up their services to team with him. Max Caster has been quote unquote courting MJF because MJF and Max Caster are friends in real life. They've grew up together in the business. They've known each other for 10 years or something, and they work out together. And MJF has been, for the entirety of AEW, as long as the Acclaimed has been around, Max Caster has been hitting on him on social media. And um Billy Gunn and Anthony Bowens have been trying to train him to have small talk with people.
Yes.
And it has not been going well. And it usually always leads to a sexual innuendo. And MJF basically told Max Caster and the Acclaim that he wanted nothing to do with them. And that is when Samoa Joe offered up his services, and MJF, being the smart person that he is, knowing that Samoa Joe could kick the shit out of anybody, he's like, yeah, sure, you can have a title shot after you
Yes.
help me.
Which,
So
makes sense, I think, in
yeah,
various aspects.
yeah. So now, and
Yeah,
then you also have Wardlow, who is back after missing 4 months of just sitting on the bench, missing.
not injured, not like
No,
not
no, he was just gone after Hobbs beat him for the TNT belt. He just disappeared, and he missed All In. He missed All Out. He missed everything, and then he just comes back and is just doing what he was doing before, which is destroying jobbers. And they ask why he's back and why he's doing what he's doing, and he just has MJF written on his tape.
yeah.
And he discussed in a vignette, which makes the most sense in the world, that he was under MJF for all those years
Hmm.
and knows that he hasn't changed, and basically saying exactly what we've been thinking since he started teaming with Adam Cole, and what Tony Schiavone has been saying, because Tony Schiavone hates MJF also. And yeah, so and the argument has been made numerous times that the last time MJF was in the ring with Wardlow, he lost miserably.
Yeah,
So why wouldn't he want a title shot?
exactly. Like I totally completely understand. Like, there was a little you mentioned that he had he pointed to his wrist tape. That was an exchange with Tony Schiavone, and afterwards I don't know if it was advertent or they planned this, but when Wardlow got out of the ring, he accidentally bumped into Tony and knocked him to the
Yeah,
ground. And then
yeah,
people started booing.
yeah,
And a couple of other people who were commentating on other podcasts were saying, okay, that was a mistake. He's still red hot right now. Everybody loves Tony Schiavone. When you did that, you elicited a negative reaction. So we don't want people to boo Wardlow at this point, to the point where he's like a total heel. But he shouldn't have done that because he's still pretty red hot right now. And the things he's saying as to why he's frustrated, we all can understand and agree with because it's completely true, 100%. You've got Wardlow here, probably one of the few people that has pinned MJF within the last year or so. I can't remember the last time MJF lost a match to
yeah.
someone that resulted in a major title
In a
change.
in a singles match.
Yeah. And you've got
In a
Samoa
singles match.
Joe. To a lesser extent, Roddy Strong, because I think Roderick is trying to like become MJF's friend because he realizes that's in order to do that, in order to like have Adam like still be his friend, he might have to like finally realize that he has to suck up a bit to MJF. So I don't know if I'm pretty sure this whole thing with him and the Kingdom trying to befriend Max to be his allies is just a ruse. Um, yeah, you got Jay White and Kenny Omega, and
Then
we
also,
also we haven't discussed the mysterious person in the devil mask, how that person factors into all of this, whether
Yeah.
that's MJF or not, or because that's the latest appearance from let's go back to the devil mask thing for a second. A few weeks ago, a Dynamite ended with a backstage segment where they saw a bunch of mysterious black clad assailants beating up Jay White. They took out Bullet Club Gold's leader, who was by himself for some reason. And then
Mm-hmm.
a man in a devil mask, completely covered in black, was like overseeing the whole beatdown, and then the camera just cuts away. Now we all
Yeah.
thought it was Max, but I don't know. MJF has completely denied it was him. So, and then this past Dynamite, after a very fired up MJF did a promo, they cut away to a mysterious shot where the guy in the devil mask was there again, and then for like a few seconds, he's just making appearances on the screen, and he hasn't really shown up anywhere yet.
Yeah.
Um, the various theories from fans range from yes, this is Max to no, it's Adam Cole to it's CM Punk and the firing is a complete ruse
Yeah.
to it's Kyle O'Reilly, it's Alexander Hammerstone. Off the body type does not match the various times that this
Oh,
guy has appeared,
yeah.
that the
No,
Devil
it's
Mask guy has appeared. So this could
Richard
be
Holiday.
Richard Holiday to
Yeah.
the various theories are just all over the place. And I even heard the theory that it was actually Bullet Club Gold that
Uh huh.
created this in order to try to, I guess, lure MJF in a false sense of security or something. It's just
Yeah.
kind of a bit of a
And I
swerve.
see. I think that makes the most sense.
Yeah.
Because you could say that like, oh, they didn't really do anything. They just punched and kicked him a bunch to Jay White. I mean,
And you
so
have to think about it. Why was he by himself? Where was Juice Robinson? Where were the guns? Like,
and they were all together at one
yeah,
point.
they were all they aren't they all like together backstage? Like, what happened to
Yeah.
those three?
So MJF's last singles loss was against Wardlow.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Uh, at Double or Nothing 2022. And yeah, he hasn't lost a singles match since, other than he had a draw with Adam Cole.
Yeah.
Um,
So, like going on the theory of that, this whole devil mask thing is probably something that maybe the Bullet Cup guys are came up cooked up in order to like provide a distraction for the real plan. Does that mean that Jay White could possibly walk away legitimately as the AEW World Champion at Full Gear?
well,
Yeah.
I had that thought before they announced World's End.
Mm. World's
So
End is AEW's latest pay per view. It will take place. Was it Sunday, December 30th, or was it Saturday? I can't
I
remember.
think that's a Saturday.
Let me. My apologies, everyone who's listening. Yeah, that is Saturday, December 30th, at the Nassau Coliseum on Long Island,
Yes.
MJF's home turf. So the
So,
significance of that is pretty big.
well, and there's even more layers to that because, I mean, and he hasn't really talked about it as much recently, but for the last 2.5 years, he's been talking about the bidding war of 2024,
Mm.
and that's the end of the year. The contract is coming up. Of course, we don't know anything about his contract status. He could have re-signed a contract the day that he came back from his hiatus, for all we know. But and like I said, he hasn't been mentioning it recently. Um, but I think that show being announced where it is and when it's happening is the perfect location for him to lose the belt. Um, because I feel like if they're gonna use that in storyline, they could do the whole thing where it's like, oh, somebody has to beat him before this show, before the end of this show, otherwise he's gonna leave with the belt, and stuff that we've seen before. But it's MJF, so he's gonna turn it into whatever he can turn it into. But also, he's a babyface. And there's going because there's so many people that are gunning for him right now. I feel like there's going to be a lot of things happening between now and that show. And all of these people are going to want to challenge him before this show or on this show to try to take it off of him. Um, because they're not just going to do a storyline where he keeps the belt, his contract runs out, and then they have to crown a new champion. That's predictable. And then he just comes back, which is what we expect. So I
Yeah.
feel like he has to lose at this show. He has to.
Well, I think based on the predictions we've made in all the episodes we've done so far, we don't have a good track record of being accurate.
Of course.
But going to this point though, when Wrestle Dream happened in Seattle, and the main event was announced to be Darby versus Christian Cage for the TNT Championship, 2 out of 3 falls. I kind of expected it was going to be Darby that wins that. Whether not factoring in the debut of Adam Copeland, but it turned out he didn't, and we got a major swerve in Nick Wayne turning on him. So, I always thought AEW was a company that liked to have whoever's the hometown person go over in their hometown. But from what you're saying,
but when it's the
there was
right time,
yeah, I know there was another suggestion that maybe MJF drops the title, if not at Full Gear, then maybe Winter is Coming, and then he just reclaims it back at World's End because it's gonna be on Long Island. I mean, that is a more boring, maybe more dull and mundane booking scenario.
yeah.
Yours is a little more interesting, obviously, but
Now, with that being said, the question is, who would that be?
right.
Now,
Let's go back to the main question.
now, I I think the I think the person that would make the most sense is Wardlow, just for the significance of the um last time they were in the ring together and the history between them. But I don't know if that is what they want to do. I mean, obviously, I have no idea. I don't work there,
Right.
but Samoa Joe is not going to beat him, unfortunately. Um, the Kenny match will probably be really good with shenanigans at the end, keeping MJF from losing. Because Jay White's going to be there, who still has possession of the belt, of course. He's claiming to be the champion, though he is not.
Yes.
Um, so I honestly don't know if the people that we have discussed are any of those people that will beat him.
True. It could be
Um,
somebody completely not on the radar at the moment.
so if it were up to me, I would put it on Swerve like immediately because
Yeah.
Swerve is easily, I mean, if you want to put Christian in the discussion, one of the best heels in the entire world of wrestling right now. He's absolutely on another level right now, and his feud with Adam Page is probably going to culminate at Full Gear. I would think, but there is there is a lot you could do there to set this up in the coming weeks after Full Gear. Um, and if that is the case, then Swerve would have to beat Adam Page again.
Right.
But I don't know if he will now that they did the home invasion angle.
Yeah. Thinking there's gonna be a lot more to unhash that there leading up to Full Gear, and who knows after. Because yeah, just to let people know what happened on this past Dynamite. Swerve, I think, or Prince Nana, I think, but more like
Both
Swerve.
of them.
Both of
Both
them
of them.
tweeted out they were not going to go to Philadelphia for the show. They just took a picture of the airport that they were in. It was in the Queen City of Charlotte, North Carolina, which is where Adam Page's home is. And then we saw a very disturbing video of Swerve going to a random house, and we realized it was Adam Page's house. And he then walks into a room where there's a baby's crib, and we're like, oh my god. Well, so we're supposed to believe Swerve is overlooking Adam Page's little baby child that um his family just had. I guess one question
Yeah.
was, I was wondering, where was the hang woman? Because like, did she take enough Valium to knock herself out for the entire evening? Because like, it was just, how do you walk into someone's house with a mother of a toddler sleeping somewhere and her not waking up? And this was so disturbing to the point that Nana came in and says, "Hey, boss, I think we gotta get up. I think we should leave. This is I'm not sure we should be doing this. This is getting really weird." So I don't know. I mean, at least I hope the baby got a free Swerve T-shirt out of this, because I hope he left some merchandise behind.
um
Yeah, we're taking like bad guy villain here to another level. So obviously Hangman was distraught right after his 6-man tag match. He just immediately ran out of up the ramp and most likely left the building, quote unquote.
yeah.
Um, yeah, we'll probably get another grudge match. Who the hell knows what this is going to be? Maybe like a Texas death match or something like that. Um,
Yeah, I mean, but also just looking at the roster right now, like there really isn't anybody else that is like on the cusp of like getting a title shot, I think. Like, House of Black is back, so Malachi is doing something else. Um Danielson is doing other things.
well,
Um
Danielson is essentially winding down his full
yeah,
time wrestling career at this point.
yeah. Moxley is in the international title picture, so he's not going to challenge again,
Well,
probably.
essentially, the Blackpool Combat Club, maybe minus Danielson, is just, I guess they're going to be wrapped up in this feud with the House of Black and Ricky Starks, Big Bill, and whatever third person those two could find to hang around with them.
Yeah,
And then FTR is mixed in there as well for some reason. I guess just on the tail end of the Ricky Starks and Big Bill thing. Um, yeah, if you saw that brawl at Collision like last week, that was just an absolute mess when they just basically told half the locker room, "Hey guys, can you end the show, please?" Just
yeah.
a brawl.
So on paper, like really, I think the only logical choices would be a Wardlow or a Swerve if you get him there, obviously, which wouldn't be that hard because he's already on a roll. Um, because yeah, Kenny's getting his shot on Saturday and probably isn't winning. Samoa Joe still has the ROH Television Championship, which is just sitting there at this point. I mean, he defends it on ROH TV, but not against anybody significant. Um, and yeah, I mean, everybody else that you would think that is like ready for that next step is kind of doing something. Not to say that they won't be doing something by end of December, but um, yeah. So I think it's got to be either Wardlow or Swerve for me.
I'm gonna maybe I'll just try to argue a bit differently, and I think eventually, depending on, I mean, we're talking about. Oh, are you expecting a title change by World's End, that pay per view? Because
I am solely because I just don't want them to go down the road of like, oh, he's leaving and he's gonna leave with the belt, because that is too similar to something that has happened in the past in another company, and I feel
yeah,
like you shouldn't do that. I
but
feel like
I guess to provide a different viewpoint, let's say in the scenario that MJF keeps the title after World's End, um, I'm wondering. Let's just assume now that the Devil Mask thing is not a Bullet Club ruse, and that it's actually somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the most likely person would be Adam Cole at this point. Because I remember there
Yeah.
was a scene where Adam and Max were in the locker room and they were having a little chat.
Yeah.
And it just so happens you notice in the background, Max had they both had their jackets hung up. And the Devil Mask was there too. But the Devil Mask was not on the side where MJF has his stuff. It was on Adam Cole's side.
Yeah.
So that was a very subtle subliminal message there. Um,
So if he wasn't
the
hurt,
guy in the initial beatdown video on Jay White, the physique does sort of match someone of Adam Cole's build. Um,
yeah.
and considering that, he was stuck in Roderick Strong's house for a few weeks doing like vignettes of him doing chores around there. So there's already a group of like at least four guys, and you just need one more, which
Yeah.
I think most people would say maybe it's a Kyle O'Reilly of sorts. Bear in mind, the original video wasn't done with those actual guys. It was probably just done with like backstage extras because
Yeah.
we're supposed to believe eventually who would fill those spots. It could be anybody, and
Mm-hmm.
I have a feeling this has been kind of a bit of a swerve because there has been a lot of numerous teases that Adam Cole wanted the AEW Championship, and it
Of
looked like
course.
he was almost the guy that was gonna like turn on Max and not the other way around.
Yeah.
So if they decided to play the long game and go keep with that storyline, then it could
Yeah.
conceivably be a heel Adam Cole that takes the title.
So I fully believe that that could be the case if Adam Cole is not out as long as he is expected to be out. Because the speculation is 6 to 8 months.
Yeah. I
Um,
still can't believe that happened just because of that little slip off the ramp.
yeah,
It's
yep.
just
I mean, that's why I hate elevated ramps. I don't know why they do them, but um,
maybe they didn't expect him at the time to like run that direction or something. I don't know.
or to run that fast.
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah. I mean, the only possibility I see. So if that were the case, the only thing I would think is that this whole injury has been a ruse, or at least the length of it has been a ruse. Um, and that he's healthy enough in the next couple of months. Because I feel like if he's injured for 6 to 8 months, the steam of that is going to die down a lot.
Yeah.
Um, Even if they continue to do the phone calls and the teasing of them, they're talking, but Roddy's in the background, and they can't do that for 6 to 8 months. They just can't.
Yeah.
That's too long. Um, so yeah, if the possibility of his injury is not as bad as they're saying, and that's part of the angle, then I would totally agree with you that Adam Cole should be that person behind the mask who is playing games and trying to get under MJF's skin to ultimately cause or be the person to take the belt from him, because that would make the most sense. Um, it's just, of course, we have no idea because of the injury stuff.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's a bit of a wild theory from me at least, because trying to think
yeah.
of other
Well,
possibilities.
no, it's a logical theory. It's just that the injury is the
Yeah,
thing
it's
that
the
holds
injury
that back.
that's complicating the whole thing. Yeah.
Because again, we don't know.
Yeah.
For all we know, that somebody could have leaked that report just to get people to off the scent. I mean, he could be really hurt, just not for as long as they're saying. Um, because yeah, I mean, he was noticeably limping after that
Yeah.
thing, and yeah, so It's all. I think it's all wait and see at this point. But yeah, MJF has been on a tear, and I'm sure this match with Kenny is going to be great. This match with Jay White is going to be great. Uh, and all this stuff happening in the next couple of months of the end of the year it's crazy that like I don't know how I'm going to put together my matches of the year. And I can tell you right now, there's probably not going to be a WWE match on my list at all.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like there isn't really a WWE match that stood out as a match of the year so far.
But yeah, it's going to be really hard, especially if these matches are as good as they should be.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess we will see in the coming weeks everything that is going on with MJF. But moving on to our next topic, and that is the retirement of Sting. So, as we all know, Sting has been wrestling for what 35 plus years, and
Yeah.
uh, coming close to 40, I think, because he started in what 85. Uh,
Let me see. So debut November 25th, 1985. So yeah, getting close to like 40 years in the business. Wow.
yeah. So Sting, unfortunately, did not have the best run in the other company, and that unfortunately led to a serious neck injury that thought he was going to be done forever. And this was 8 years ago. Um, so he comes to AEW as he is mentioned at Revolution 2021 and has had nothing but bangers. They've all been tag matches, but he's probably had more amazing matches in this last 3 years than he's had in like the last like few years of his TNA run. And he announced that at Revolution 2024, which will be the 3 year anniversary of his AEW debut, that will be his final match.
Yep. Um, Obviously a very emotional time for that to hear that announcement for those who have followed Sting's career for majority of it or all of it. Pretty much he's been there like as that one of the most iconic figures in the history of pro wrestling, dating back to when he was like Rocker Sting to Crow Sting to NWO Wolfpack Sting to TNA Sting, as you mentioned, Joker Sting. That was a very memorable time. WWE Sting, although that was could have went better, as you mentioned. And now
Yeah.
AEW
And
Sting. AEW Sting has probably done some of the most outrageous matches in that man's career at his age at this point in time.
he's
So
definitely done the most craziest stuff that he's ever done in his entire career in AEW. Like he wasn't jumping off of things in WCW. He wasn't like doing any of this in TNA slash Impact or anything like that. He's been jumping off ladders, jumping off stages, jumping off Titantrons. Like
I mean,
he
he had Darby Allin as his tag team partner mostly the whole time. So that kind
yeah.
of rubs off on you.
So the the pattern has been that Revolution is usually like the first Sunday or Saturday in March. So if that is the case, then he will be, like a couple of weeks away from his 65th birthday. So I honestly, that's like the perfect time to retire. If you think about it, he's done so much, and there's really nothing left for him to give to the wrestling business.
So
Um,
Sting's birthday is March 20th.
yeah,
and March 20th is actually a Wednesday.
Yeah,
So
so usually Revolution has been either the first one was the last Saturday in February, but all the others have been like the first Sunday or Saturday in March.
right.
So the date hasn't been announced for the next one yet because it's next March. So they'll announce it when it's closer. But so as of right now, he's been enthralled in this thing with Christian and Luchasaurus and Nick Wayne, and it seems like they're aiming towards Full Gear being a trios match between him, Darby, and Adam Copeland against the aforementioned Christian trio.
The
Um,
Christian Coalition, let's call it that.
well, um, so I don't think that they're gonna obviously play that out until March. I feel like that feud will be over by then.
Yeah.
Um, so we talked before we got on here. Tony Khan announced over social media that he had a present for Sting, and it was a present that nobody has ever received on television ever.
Huh.
And
So for
that
those of you who thought that AEW was going to start a Hall of Fame and Sting was the first inductee, no, because that has been done on a television before, right?
and they shouldn't have a Hall of Fame in the first 5 years of their existence. They
Yeah,
shouldn't.
that's
They
yeah,
shouldn't even have one until after 20 years.
yeah, too soon, too soon.
So, um, but this present was a person,
Ah, Nature Boy! Woo!
and you could see that Sting obviously uh getting his mentor in AEW to be there for the end of his career was something that he probably wanted and something that he enjoyed. I don't think it's particularly necessary, but so the question is now, is Ric Flair just going to be on TV every week walking around with Sting and that's it?
That is interesting. The last couple of times Flair's been on any wrestling television, it's been mixed reviews. The most memorable run he had in WWE the last time I saw him was a rather unpleasant pregnancy storyline involving um um the
The
former
former
Lacey
Lacey
Evans
Evans.
with his daughter Charlotte in the mix in that,
And
and that
every
kind of
single person involved in that feud hated it.
yeah,
Everyone,
and
including
it
Ric
was
Flair.
just like really bad timing considering that Lacey ended up actually becoming pregnant. And wait, I think
Yes.
she did become pregnant, and as a result, they created the storyline. So, I
Yeah.
mean, we all have this image of Ric Flair being just this immaculate playboy, but that may have been true in like 1985, but it's like 2021, and he's just
At the time, yeah.
yeah, and now he's just a very very old man. Um, we
Yes.
also
So,
had the infamous Ric Flair's last match pay-per-view that
oh,
was produced by Jim Crockett Promotions or some facsimile of it. It
it
featured
was
Ric Flair's last match
it was
appearance or
produced by
not.
Ric Flair. It was produced by Ric Flair's son-in-law.
Conrad
Let's
Thompson. Conrad
yes,
Thompson is what it is.
yes.
Yeah.
So Ric Flair obviously being in AW is odd, and it kind of goes along the lines of the Sabu discussion that we had in the past because again, Tony Khan has said on record Hulk Hogan is not welcome in AEW.
Okay, but that's Hulk Hogan. In terms of,
But
I'm trying to remember, like,
Ric
okay,
Flair
Ric
has been
Flair's.
accused of raping people.
Okay, yeah. Thanks for reminding me. Ugh, okay.
Um,
Uh,
so it's not a good look once again to be doing this. I mean, I'm not comparing Ric Flair to Sabu. Sabu is a racist, a blatant racist, and he will tell you that he is. But it I just don't think Ric Flair should have a national platform anymore, especially at his age. No matter what you think of his career, and he's had a hell of a career.
yeah. Like
Um,
Rick is probably best to do like Starcast autograph signings and
yes,
the occasional podcast where he could probably say whatever he wants without any repercussions or like putting anybody in
yes.
legal liability.
So obviously, they're. I don't think they're going to be on the show every single week. Sting isn't on the show every
No,
single
no,
week. So if Sting's not on the show every single week, Ric Flair doesn't need to be on the show every single week.
yeah, and
Regardless of
yeah,
all of that, Sting is one of Ric Flair's greatest rivals. So ultimately, the thought immediately will enter your head like, oh, he's going to turn on him and get somebody to beat him up or something, right? Because the entire thing of their rivalry is that who's better, right? Who's the biggest icon in the world or whatever. And Ric Flair and Sting were never quote unquote friends on television ever. So that's where I kind of am like, okay, they're gonna whenever Sting is around, Ric Flair is gonna be around. And they're just gonna be buddy buddy on screen, and then at some point Ric Flair's gonna be like, you were never better than me. You're still not better than me. And I'm not gonna wrestle you, but this person is, whoever it is. But Sting hasn't had a singles match his entire AEW run. So it's gonna be a tag match, most likely. Because I don't think that he would want to have a singles match as his last match to because if it's not good, that's all he's gonna know. That's all he's gonna think about is that it's not good and that he, you know, underperformed in his last match ever.
mm,
So it's gonna be a tag match again that he will be teaming with Darby most likely. There was talk of like him and Darby facing each other as a way to pass the torch, but I don't think that is wise for Sting to have a match with Darby.
yeah,
Health wise.
yeah,
Um and who knows, Darby might not even want to wrestle him. So I think it's going to be a tag match. My concern is you mentioned Ric Flair's last match.
yeah. I mean, that
The people
could have gone better, but you know,
so the people that were in that match are
yeah,
in AEW.
uh-huh.
And you know, Ric Flair being friends with them at some point down the line to have them be the ones to beat Sting seems like something that could happen. And
Yeah.
you notice how my tone went all the way down here because I really don't want that to happen.
Yeah, you are not a fan of, I think, this particular person being on television and taking up all this airtime. Um, you know, even with coming within title contention at times. You're fine with him being the backstage executive and maybe, producing the events and all, which is where his expertise
And
should be based on his
also,
decades
all
long career.
also, I watched TNA from 2000. 2005 to 2013.
Okay.
I saw those guys face each other a lot.
Oh.
I don't need to see that again.
Yeah. So for those of you who are listening and wondering what Mike is talking about, he's talking about Jeff Jarrett possibly being Sting's final opponent in a tag match scenario. I mean,
Most likely with
so
Jay
so
Lethal.
he mentioned Ric Flair's last match. Ric Flair's quote unquote last match at that event was him teaming up with his son-in-law Andrade El Idolo against Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal. All four of those people are in AEW. So if you
Yes.
take that template and put it to a possible Sting retirement match, you could possibly get something like Sting and Darby Allin facing Jeff Jarrett and Andrade with Ric Flair in their corner or something.
Or Jay
So
Lethal.
or
Or
Jay
Jay Lethal.
or sub out Andrade and put in just Jay Lethal because they'll work that in somehow because Jarrett and Lethal have been teaming up most of the
Yes.
time now, so they're more familiar with each other.
And I really don't want this to happen. But I'll tell you what I do want to happen and what I think the match should be. It should be Sting and Darby versus Edge and Christian, or Adam Copeland and Christian.
hmm,
Because Adam Copeland is a Sting fan. And this whole storyline that's kind of going on right now is, and again, I don't think that this story in particular is going to last until next March. But they're going to have this trios match where Adam Copeland teams with them against Christian's team. But Edge is still, I'm never going to not call him Edge. Adam Copeland still wants to be Christian's friend, even if he knows it's the right idea to face him. And they're going to have that tag run. It's going to happen. And the best place for it to begin would be against Sting in his final match. In my opinion,
mm-hmm.
because Adam Copeland and Christian Cage are two of the most professional wrestlers in the world and could carry Sting and presumably Darby, who doesn't need carrying, but could carry Sting to one of the best matches of his career. And it being his last match, he would go out on top, most likely. Or no, he's probably going to get pinned because he hasn't lost a single match in AEW, so he's going to get pinned. But it would be a perfect send off, in my opinion. Because who else is it going to be?
Yeah,
The young, the young
honestly,
bucks.
yeah, it's like like running down the list of possible scenarios, minus Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal. The Young Bucks, FTR,
I mean, that one could happen.
that one could happen too.
That one could also happen.
It could be like even rated FTR, Adam Copeland and FTR versus Sting, Darby, and just throw in some random dude in there as well. Who knows? Yeah, and just there's no other tag teams within the roster that have come up to that level that could be conceivably in a Sting retirement match scenario, other than the two guys you just mentioned.
And Adam Copeland has never been in the ring with Sting before.
Mm,
On the other side,
yeah,
he's never teamed with them either. He's probably going to do that at Full Gear. But
yeah,
I, it just to me makes the most sense, and it's the only time that you will get to see Adam Copeland and Sting in the ring together because his career will be over at that point.
mm,
And again, I think that there's plenty of time in between now and Revolution to build to Edge and Christian, Adam Copeland and Christian Cage being back together and being the ones to end Sting's career. Because
okay,
and you're gonna say everybody's gonna say that like Oh, the person who ends Sting's career is somebody who should be somebody who needs it, right? Not necessarily, because it could just be a fun match. It doesn't have to be somebody who quote unquote needs it, because it doesn't really. I don't think it matters at that point, because you're just there to celebrate Sting. That's why everybody is there for this match, to celebrate Sting. And doing that with Adam Copeland and Christian Cage as the opponents just makes the most sense, because they are that good in the ring.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I got no argument here. That actually is probably the most ideal scenario and probably the best choice to have for Sting's final match in professional wrestling. So yeah, let's put out in the universe now. So Sting's final match, Revolution, should be Sting and Darby to face uh Adam Copeland and Christian Cage.
Because and there are other tag teams that could use that win, of course, like a Ricky Starks, for example. A Ricky Starks and a Big Bill, if they're not the tag champs by that time. I don't know if they'll be the tag champs by March still, but and you could also throw in House of Black if you want, because that would be huge for them. That would be something that would catapult them if if it was necessary. Um, but other than that, I can't think of anybody else, honestly. Um, so yeah, I think that Adam Copeland and Christian Cage make the most sense, but House of Black could be a good choice, and Ricky and Big Bill could also be a good choice if that is on the
Yeah, if
table.
they're still like a team by then or even tag team champ.
But if it is Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal, I will be very upset.
Yeah,
Very
I
upset.
don't think you'd be the only one that would be upset, although I don't know how many people would really care at that point when it's
Oh, of course not. But if that is the case, then Sting has to win.
obviously, yeah.
Yes, because Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal, I think, are not very well liked
Yeah,
by
but if it's
fans.
like those two and
And
then Sting comes out winning, it's a very predictable result. Whereas your other scenario is actually the more interesting and probably more ideal way to have a proper send off.
yes, I wholeheartedly believe that. So yeah, I mean, we'll see how the next couple of months are going to go for Sting. I mean, I don't think he's going to have like more than 3 matches before then, anyway. So
Right.
because he doesn't wrestle.
We're not gonna see an MJF schedule of him any at this point. So
Oh, of course not. I mean, he wrestles what, like 3 times a year anyway.
right.
So in the next 4 months, is he gonna uh, have bangers by himself? Absolutely
Yeah.
not. But uh, Sting has had a hell of a career, and I mean, I admittedly, and I've talked about this in the past, was not a WCW guy, but I have gone back and watched a lot of his matches that people talk about. The man, the man was really good at wrestling. There's no other way to put it. He's transcended just being a character guy, mainly because he has reinvented himself so many times and gotten over every single time. There's never been a time where Sting was not liked by everyone. He's just uh, he's a legend, and he's already a Hall of Famer, but he's gonna go down as one of the best of all time. Definitely, probably other than Ric Flair, the most recognizable name, I think, to be associated with WCW.
Yep. And so yeah, so in conclusion, I think based on the time we've had tonight, ideally it looks like Wardlow would probably make the most sense as the guy to take the belt off MJF before the end of the year. And Sting's retirement match, ideally, would be with Adam Copeland and Christian Cage he's teaming with Darby Allin for one last time.
And of course, we're just throwing out we're spitballing here, and what 9 times out of 10 we're wrong anyway.
Yeah.
So, um, but yeah, it would obviously be really cool if we got either of these correct, let alone both of them. But yeah, I am looking forward to everything AEW going forward. Um, I might be going to World's End. That hasn't been figured out just yet, but uh, that's a financial thing that I have to have
Yeah.
to figure out.
Well,
Um,
aren't you from Long Island? So it's close enough, right, for you?
well, yeah, but that the travel's not the issue. The
Oh, it's the
the
money. It's the money.
the
Yeah.
it's the tickets that are the issue.
Yeah.
Because I went to Grand Slam again and they like doubled the prices. So I mean I've never been to an AEW pay-per-view.
Yeah.
I've been to Grand Slam 3 times. So I would hope that it's in the same realm as Grand Slam, but it's probably going to be more because it's a bigger arena and yeah. But we will see what happens with everything that we have discussed, everything else going on in the world of wrestling as a whole.
Yeah. Um,
Um,
as for me, I will be attending the taping on November 11th for Impact Wrestling's throwback throwdown, in which they pretend one night it's like the 1980s, and they book themselves as the Impact Provincial Wrestling Federation, where it's a night of gimmick wrestling, guys with silly names, and just everybody having a good time. They're going to be having it in the Toronto area where I usually watch my indie show, so that's why I'm going to that.
so Johnny Swinger can just play Johnny Swinger.
Yeah, Johnny Swinger would be the only person that keeps his regular name in that particular uh
Yes,
distortion of time and space, as you would call it.
yes.
Yeah, one other thing, I'm very excited. This is probably a topic for another podcast, but if you have not heard, as of January 2024, Impact Wrestling, the company, will go back to becoming Total Nonstop Action, TNA, starting at the Hard to Kill pay-per-view in January. Um, if you've paid attention to some of the wrestling news in the past couple of months, Impact had said that they were looking to change up their production as well as their venues. And obviously, this announcement was huge. Them going back to TNA, back to the roots. As you say, I know, Mike, you when you were watching TNA, there was times when it was hard to watch because of certain people. But we also talk about the iconic company that gave us AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels, Frankie Kazarian, the X Division.
Mm-hmm.
So many very unique memories for those who didn't want to watch just WWE at the time. Um,
Yes, and
yeah, if you go to my Twitter page at the Cantastic, I subtly put a hint that next time they're in Toronto, if they're looking for a bigger venue, since you're doing this change, I suggested what used to be called the iconic Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto. It is a larger space. It's almost like a stadium size, not a massive stadium, but it's big enough to fit like a varsity basketball game slash, you know, provincial hockey game. But yeah, that was where the Maple Leafs, Toronto Maple Leafs, had played for decades. So
mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's actually much
So
closer to the actual city. So it's if you're looking for a bigger venue for 2024 as they become TNA again, then I would humbly suggest next time that they're in Toronto, try using that one, not the
The
nightclub.
early years of TNA being on national television was some of their best years, and some of the years that I enjoyed the most out of them. Uh, it was really like 2004 to around 2008 was definitely like their biggest years in my opinion, and it started to go downhill around the time of Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff.
Why we're
And
not surprised on that one.
of course. So I'm excited for them to have this reset once again and for it to mean something big for them.
I mean, it is. Think about it.
Bound
Yeah.
for Glory was a great show that I watched from start to finish, and I loved it. Uh, Three guesses on what my favorite match is.
So while we were recording, I actually had it playing in the background, and I think I know. Yeah, yeah, it was a very. It wasn't like it was a. It might be a match of the year candidate for both of us at this point.
Osprey is going to dominate my list.
Yeah, yeah, I would say so. There were like three. I think there was like three matches alone that he was in that we
I mean,
both would probably be picking.
two with Kenny.
Yeah.
I mean,
Um.
it,
Anyway,
it,
yeah. Anyway, so with that, we're gonna be signing off. Thank you for listening to our episode tonight. Watch the wrestling you want to watch, not necessarily what people are telling you to watch.
and
Yeah.
make sure to check out our link tree at going over big time link tree / going over big time podcast, and check out our YouTube, which will be on there. And yeah, thank you for supporting us.
Yep. Have a good night.